Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the channel where today I am not going to be doing a book review, but I'm going to give my opinion, some thoughts and some ideas I've got about magic realism, that particular subgenre of literature. And the reason being is that of late in recent conversations I've been having in the internet podcast sphere, I keep hearing the term magic realism in the context or in and around fantasy, and it's not. Magic realism, in my mind, has got nothing to do with the fantasy genre or anything I may have talked about in this channel that we may associate as fantasy. So I'm going to try as best as possible to define terms here. I'm not an expert, but it's one of those things with magic realism. Maybe you don't know how to define it, but you recognize it when you see it. So I'm going to do my best. So let's start a little bit by the fantasy genre. Like, what is a fantasy? How can you tell that a book is a fantasy book? Right? Well, mostly it happens in a secondary world, right? It's not in the real world. It's some kind of Middle Earth, continent of Kryn, the Forgotten Realms, whatever Cosmere things may happen. You get the idea. There are, to some degree, more or less kind of fantastical creatures. There usually is a magic system of sorts, whether it's a soft magic system or a hard magic system or more or less magic, but there's some degree of all these things. Typically, there is some sort of medieval setting there, but not necessarily the case. And you get the idea. There's some sort of heroic quests and deeds, or heroes overcoming the odds, and the usual classic fantasy tropes that some of us love, some of you hate, the Chosen One, the Dark Lord, all that kind of stuff, right? Variations on a theme. Now, magic realism is none of that. And in magic realism, the word you have to underscore, underline, and stress is the realism bit. The magic, probably a bit of a misnomer. So fundamentally, the action, the setting, the place, the characters in magic realism happen in the real world. So these are real people going through their normal lives. And there is, it happens in the real world. There is no fantastical creatures on the main. There's no heroic deeds necessarily. This is just regular people going about their lives. And the magic thing is not so much magic as in casting spells or spiritual sort of possession or anything like that. Magic is more in the sense of making the impossible, or let's say the highly improbable, happen. That's mostly what it is. It's almost like something so remotely possible that the fact that it happens makes it almost magical. That's I think where the magic bit comes from, and the realism is really important. So there's more of a focus on characters and emotions and environments as the core of the story, not the action taking place. Also, and fundamentally, at its core, but it's not restricted to, but fundamentally, magic realism, it is a Central / Latin American phenomena. Like, it's a post-war literary movement, all this being also associated with other forms of the pictorial art and maybe movies. I'll talk a little bit about it later. But at the core, chances are, if you're reading some kind of Central / Latin American post-World War II author, chances are you're reading a bit of magic realism. So, names that spring to mind. Works of literature that are considered magic realism, and as you can see, as I go through the list, have got nothing to do with your Tolkien's, Sanderson's, Salvatore's, Rocchio's, Ursula Le Guin's, whoever you can think of. So, the most classic case is Gabriel Garcia Marquez and his 100 Years of Solitude. It's a fictional town of Macondo, but it's in Colombia, and it follows like 4 generations of a family as they go about through their lives, and technological progress affects their lives and it changes the landscape and the village they live in. So really that is that. This book, actually, this copy comes with a sort of photo of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and it's got a special place in my heart because my grandmother bought it for me and sort of dedicated it to me, and it's a memory of my grandmother. So as you can see, Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Sanderson Tolkien got not much in common. Other works that I consider magic realism would be something like Pedro Páramo by Juan Rulfo, where again it's just a regular guy that promises his mother on her deathbed to go and find his lost father and ask him for everything that is owed to them. And he goes to this village, and it just so happens that everyone there is called Pedro Páramo. So that's sort of the magic, the highly improbable happening, and maybe there's a hint of spirits there, but it's not, fantasy as such. Other books that are on my TBR, after I'm doing this video, I'm heavily considering sort of picking them up in the second half of the year, would be something like Laura Esquivel's Como agua para chocolate, so like water for chocolate. That's another book that is considered magic realism, and Isabel Allende's The House of Spirits, La Casa de los Espíritus. So all of these, Isabel Allende being Chilean, and Laura Esquivel, I should check which is from, I don't know, but again, that's sort of part of the American continent. It is not a movement that is geographically close, so other pieces of work that are considered magic realism could be Milan Kundera's The Unbearable Lightness of Being, or maybe Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children, and some of Murakami's work is also sometimes considered magic realism, and the Portuguese author José Saramago, Blindness, and All the Names. Those are books that I've read considered magic realism. Blindness deals with a time where all of a sudden people are going blind. So again, it's not really magic, so they're really highly improbable. I would probably say something like Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist. I will consider also magic realism, and perhaps movies now that I was thinking as I was making this video, something like Roberto Benigni's It's a Beautiful Life, or Life is Beautiful, sorry, would also be considered magic realism. So if you've got any knowledge of these books, or if you've read these books, I think it's very clear to see that magic realism has got very little to do with magic, a lot to do with realism, and nothing to do with fantasy whatsoever. Like, there's nothing in Robin Hobb, Trudy Canavan, Terry Pratchett, Joe Abercrombie, just looking at my bookshelf here, Brandon Sanderson, Brent Weeks, Salvatore, Weiss and Hickman, John Wayne, J.K. Rowling, Ursula Le Guin. There is nothing in there that is magical realism. It is magic. There's no realism. And I think that's the core main distinction. I've also sort of shared with you some books that I consider magic realism for you, for me as well, to sort of read and get a bit more acquainted and familiar with the genre and sort of distinguish them. But please, in this particular case, comments down below if you've read these books or are planning to or never heard of it, curious thoughts, ideas, opinions, please, always welcome. Take loads and lots of care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.